We've spoken in the past about logic and how we do logical operations. Now, what good is logic in a program? Logic is everything in a program. Computers are logical, and what we do is we take those logical statements and we use them to do something called control flow, which is control the flow of our program. So we're going to start a new lesson here. So I'm going to create a new lesson, and we're going to look at how control flow works. So we're going to create lesson 04, and we're going to start with a new Python file called control, call it if else, right? So we open up, we go back if else.py here, right? So we've actually already seen an if statement. So it's something called an if statement. An if statement is if true, right? If something is true, print true, or print yes, else print liar. Okay, so once again, now I'm going to actually use the hotkey Control-Shift F6. Right, so if we go over here and we go Control-Shift F6, and of course it doesn't actually work, so right-click, sorry, my mistake, Control-Shift F10. Now, if is just, so we have the if by itself first of all. This is an if statement. If something is true, it'll run, and I change the if to false. Oops, and I run the same code again, and nothing runs. Now, false and true are booleans, which means I don't actually have to write the word true or false. I can just check for something here. So I could say a is greater than 10. Now, I need a value for a, so I'm going to say a equals 9. Oh, whoops, a equals 9. So now I have a value for that, and I say a is greater than 10. It doesn't print anything because it's not true. If I change it to 19, save the same program, oops, and then run the program, and now it prints out yes, because that statement is true. So an if statement just checks the condition after it. If it's true, it does the thing. If it's false, it doesn't do the thing. What's the condition? The condition can be as elaborate as we want. We can string together a bunch of comparisons as long as we just use and or, right? So if you go back to our last lesson on, if you go back to the lesson on mathematical operators, we've got a bunch of these mathematical operators, and we can use all of them in an if statement. Now, we have an if, and you already saw, we have an else, which means else is going to happen if it's either if or else, right? If true, else do this. Else is otherwise, right? If else. If it's true, do this. Else do that. So in this case, we're going to print liar. Right? So we're going to run this and run our code, and it prints out yes because it's true. If I change it back to the value is 9, so 9 is not greater than 10, so that's false, so it prints out liar, because I'm not telling it the truth. I am telling it something that's false. Now, we can string together a bunch of these. We can say if this, else, and then we can do else if, let's say, a is less than 10. Sorry, it's not else if, it's elif, one word. It's actually a combination of the words else and if. So elif, do this, else, and then we can just have if, we can just have else if. We can't have else by itself, we can't have else if by itself. We have to have if, and then we can either do else or else if, or we can do a bunch of else ifs and then an else at the end. Whatever you want to do, but you always have to have if before you do an else, before you do anything starting with el. So in this case, we're going to have if, else if, and now I'm going to make it exactly 10. Now, nothing prints. Why? Because it checks, is it greater than 10? No. Is it less than 10? No. So it doesn't do anything. This is an important thing to remember. You have 3 possibilities when you're comparing 2 numbers. You have greater than, you have less than, and then you have equals. Those are actually 3 different conditions, and we have to keep in mind all 3 of them. So one thing I can do is I can just add an equal sign here, right? So now it's less than or equals, and it says liar. Or I can do something else, right? I can write else at the end, and I can print guess again, and run that. Now, and now it prints out guess again because that condition is true. That's all it is. Like, we end up stringing this together and we use this a lot, but at its core, what we do with logic, with Boolean, is we turn it into if statements and else if statements and all these elaborate if statements. It's gonna, and remember, it's either true or false, and it does stuff based on that. Now, an important thing to realize here is look at my indentation. Notice how if and else if and else are all in the same column, and the word print is indented in. Python is a special, also notice the colon at the end. The colon is necessary in order for it to know, hey, this is the end of my logical, this is the end of my if statement. Go to the next line is going to be a block that happens if that's true. So something else to realize here is that we can just go print, right? We can print hello, right? So if I run this now, it's going to do guess again hello, but if I change the value to 0, it's going to print out liar hello. Why? Because it goes by that indentation, by that column. So if, else, else if, and else are all in that same column, so they're all being read together. And then print is inside each of those. So if that's true, it's going to go inside. If it's not true, it's not going to go inside. It's just going to ignore it and go on to the next one. But since line number 8, since that last print hello statement is outside of everything, it's going to print on its own. So that is control flow. That's all it is. It's powerful and it gets used a lot, and there's a lot of different conditions that we're going to apply. But at its core, it's just if, and else. Boolean has, right, it results in a Boolean, it results in something true or false, and based on if it's true or false, that's how it decides what to do. As always, if you have any questions, ask them and I will be around to answer.